Okay, well, ahead of the Parliament session, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is back in India after his tour of Malaysia and Singapore. Modi addressed the ASEAN Group of Nations and Southeast Asia Summit in Malaysia. Modi signed multiple MOUs in Malaysia and Singapore, including an agreement seeking cooperation for the development of smart cities across India. The tour ended with Prime Minister Modi's signature move, where he addressed the Indian diaspora at the Singapore Expo. Well, CNBC TV18 has been getting you a whole host of influential voices from Singapore. In an other exclusive voice, Gunit Chadha of Deutsche Bank tells Kritika Saxena he believes that India stands out amongst most of the emerging markets. Here's an excerpt of the conversation.
Green shoots are happening, but they're happening still more on the consumption side, the urban consumption side, rather than on the infrastructure and capex side, which the government must lead. And I think even if it's a fiscal stretch out from the 3.8, 3.9 into the 4.3, 4.4 range.
You mentioned that there is a slowdown in some economies on a global level. Could be slightly unrealistic to say this, but is India at least in a decent position, in a well enough position to be able to grab the opportunity that volatile economies like Brazil, like Russia, like China, for instance, may possess?
China is a very large economy. China is an 11 trillion economy, still growing in the 6 to 7% corridor. So frankly, the absolute amount of incremental GDP which China will produce, frankly, dwarfs everything else. And I think growing China, strongly growing China, is good for the world, leave alone it being good for China and good for India as well, right? But keeping that on the side, I think you're absolutely right. India is probably one of the most interesting markets globally when it comes to Fortune 500, not just for portfolio capital, but for direct investment as well. And we're seeing the results of that happening. You don't have a 2 trillion market which is growing at sort of 7% north, and the government is dreaming of it actually getting into the 8 to 9% trajectory. And the government is committed to the reform agenda, development agenda, growth agenda, job agenda. I think it's certainly got headwinds because of global growth, but India does stand out amongst the emerging markets you mentioned as a country where the best is still ahead of the curve and probably not too far away.
Okay, time for a break now, but Videocon connects with Idea Cellular.